Watch it now at ctv.ca.
We arrested and have subsequently charged 40-year-old Mr. Junqi Zhang of Scarborough. He's been charged with second-degree murder. Mr. Zhang is a construction laborer and the recently estranged boyfriend of the victim.
Police in Peel Region just west of Toronto announcing they've arrested the 40-year-old former boyfriend of Hua Guang Liu. Parts of the woman's body were discovered in 2 locations along a river and in a park in the Toronto area over the last couple of weeks. Investigators say they are treating the case as a domestic-related homicide. Joining us now is the co-CEO of Investigative Solutions Network and former member of the Toronto Homicide Squad, David Perry. He is in St. John this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Beverly.
So, tell me a little bit about, from the very beginning part of this investigation, the police were saying that they didn't believe that the public was in any danger. Do you think it's because the focus was directly on people that were close to her from the get-go?
Yes, I think they had enough clues and enough evidence at the beginning of the investigation to determine that this was a case that was going to be very close to the victim, somebody within her very close circle of family and friends. So there was no apparent danger to the public. And I know that with Luca Magnotta and all of that horrific news still in everybody's minds, it probably added to some of the fear that the community was feeling.
Well, and it would, because it's such a, obviously such a horrific crime. In this case, and I guess it's not that common, as much as people would like to think that, the dismemberment cases that make headlines, it really isn't that common. What would be the motivation behind someone who would do that?
Well, it depends. In sexual homicides, the statistics tell us there's about 6 to 7% of sexual homicides have a dismemberment component to them. But when you look at homicides in general, that number is significantly lower. And the reason that people, generally speaking, dismember bodies after they commit a murder is that, well, criminologists would tell you that it's apparently because of forensic awareness. And while that's partially true, I look at it the other way. People are unsophisticated in terms of forensic evidence, and they think that by dismembering a body and scattering it about in different locations, that it's going to be more difficult to be detected. I'm not going to teach people, obviously, how to get rid of a body, but most murderers will have quite an episode, quite a psychological episode after a homicide. They panic, they're anxious, and they make lots of mistakes. And that's one of the reasons that we catch so many of them.
So that would be, when you talk about the investigation, each piece of evidence tells a story. So then they piece together those bits of evidence. And when you think that someone in a case has panicked, what does that tell you about that type of person?
Well, when they're using these extraordinary measures to get rid of the body, the first thing that does is point me in a direction where we need to go. Even in a stranger homicide, if somebody has dismembered the body, it gives you a clue. It tells you that the killer likely knows that the police are going to be knocking on his or her door at some point. In this particular case, it would appear that the suspect clearly wanted to get rid of the body and go undetected. It does take the murder investigation out of context when you have to deal with an outside scene or a scene once a body's been moved. It's more complicated if it's been dismembered and put in different locations. But the evidence will always lead you back to the trail. And once the person's identified, then the very next step is to start looking, again, within the home and within the circle of family and very close friends. And the police can usually get to the person responsible fairly quickly.
If police believe there has been a crime of passion, describe that for me as compared to a calculated, methodical attempt of murder.
Well, a crime of passion is generally something that's motivated by a lot of emotion. And, that emotion is generally love. And then what falls out of those emotions, other things that people feel like anger and rage, usually come from that. And what we typically see in a crime of passion is what we call an overkill. So somebody is not stabbed or shot once. They're stabbed or shot multiple times. I've seen in some cases where I've worked on where we stop counting stab wounds after 50 or 60 because, it's clear how the person died and, you just run out of time to keep on counting. That's a crime of passion. This is likely because it's a domestic homicide, a crime of passion followed up by some post-murder activity, including dismemberment. That's all about disposal and going undetected. That's about the individual trying not to get caught.
Horrific case. Dave Perry, thank you for joining us this morning.